Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Czarface LP. Czarface is a new collaborative project including hip-hop veterans such as Inspectah Deck of the Wu-Tang Clan and 7L and Esoteric. And this LP and this collaboration has gathered quite a bit of attention in the hip-hop world at the start of this year, although I'm not completely sure as to why that has been. I mean, I have enjoyed quite a bit of work from 7L and Esoteric as well as Inspectah Deck when they are involved in other projects such as the Wu-Tang Clan, and I think Esoteric has made many fantastic contributions to albums from groups such as the Demigods, as well as Jedi Mind Tricks. These guys have always showcased a certain amount of energy and a certain amount of precision when it comes to being a part of a group, being a part of a larger collective. But when it comes to their solo stuff, it just hasn't withstood the test of time in the way that the music that influences these guys has. Or at least in Inspectah Deck's case, the music made by his other cohorts in the Wu-Tang Clan. His production hasn't really been that sharp lately, and his latest full-length LP, Manifesto, which came out in 2010, was easily his most lackluster yet. And as far as 7L and Esoteric go, they have quite a few records under their belt too. Even though Esoteric does have a voice that has presence and 7L puts together beats that do bring together those old school boom bap grooves, it's just nowhere near as fiery or as gritty as the New York hip-hop records that they worship. 7L and Esoteric's last full-length LP actually dropped the same year that Inspectah Deck's last full-length LP did, and both of them were relatively swept under the rug when it comes to East Coast hip-hop. So I just don't see the reason to freak out just because they're collaborating and they have an album cover that looks like a comic book and they have this new name, this new pseudonym, and there's like an action figure that's now in production because of this collaboration. However, this collaboration could be a cause for alarm because certainly 7L and Esoteric and Inspectah Deck have proven that they work better in a collaboration, in a group, in a collective, and certainly Czarface is that. And actually that's kind of the case on this thing. Czarface is, for the most part, not really that bad of collaboration. Across the 14 tracks on here, I don't really think they put out a terrible song. However, even though 7L, Esoteric, and Inspectah Deck do meld together well as a trio, I don't really think they have sharpened their skills or their styles in any significant way on this new collaboration. I just feel like they prevent one another from making terrible music, because it's certainly not like the fire of the 90s gets sparked once again on this new collab. Because there are times on this new LP where the tracks do kind of feel like this exercise of boom bap hip hop, not really this energetic blood pumping recreation of it, which artists like Progressive Era are so easily able to drum up for some strange reason, even though they didn't even grow up in that time of hip-hop. Still, Czarface is a pretty well-crafted album. It's just that sometimes it feels a little too reserved to be exciting, and that's all. The production on this LP overall is pretty sharp. 7L pulls some really good grooves and drum breaks together, especially on one of the opening tracks on this thing, Air 'Em Out. This drum break is gonna crack some freaking heads. The murky bass line is really cool too, and the Air 'Em Out vocal chants over the hook are pretty catchy as well. While it can kind of bug me at times that it's very apparent that INS is not really that MC that he used to be. He's not really that dude that's going hard. He doesn't really have that gruff voice that he used to have when he said, "I'm Messiah, I set the microphone on fire." He feels way more laid back, way more subtle, and kind of understated at times on this LP in comparison with his older stuff. However, I feel like he puts a lot of the personal history that he has had in hip-hop music into his lyrics. He really peppers it throughout his lyrics in some pretty subtle ways that results in some really good wordplay at times. However, it's not like his flow comes off as detailed or as crazy on this track, Air 'Em Out, as Esoteric's does. As soon as he flies in, not only does his voice sound way louder because he is just trying to freaking embody this beat. But it feels like there's an extra helping of vocal effects, maybe it's a chorus or something like that to make his voice stand out. I'm just sort of wondering why Inspectah Deck didn't really get the same treatment. Maybe it was just some kind of personal preference or something like that. But when Inspectah Deck comes out to rap, his voice feels way lower and way quieter in comparison to Esoteric's, which really just comes out and grabs the listener by the throat. On this same track, Esoteric's flow is changing up one set of bars after another. His random, violent, lyrical musings remind me a lot of the old school wu-tang sound, which he is very clearly influenced by, and comes off pretty sharp for the most part. And his references are pretty nutty as well, talking about people like Dash Snow at the end of a line. He sounds way hungrier in comparison to Inspectah Deck. And, you know, while I understand at this point Inspectah Deck doesn't really have anything to prove to the hip-hop world because of everything he's given to it already up until this point, it still doesn't make this a thrilling collaboration to listen to at times because of the variations of energy between these two MCs. I just kind of wish that Inspectah Deck and Esoteric had a middle point that they both kind of reached on this collaboration, because at times Esoteric is really sort of one freaking note when it comes to his aggression and his hard-ass voice. Still, to continue with the production, the weeping violin on the track Cement 3 is really awesome. The groove on that beat is solid as well. Feels like a little bit of RZA worship, and there's a very obvious Old Dirty Bastard sample on this track as well. It could have been a little bit more surprising, creative, other than what they actually ended up doing with this hook. The song Czar Raffaele also has a weak hook as well, which is just like this echoed vocal cut of Czarface, face, 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 face. It just feels so kind of mucky and not well placed against the beat, which I actually do like a lot. It feels sort of MF Doom-ish with all these samples coming from what feels like some kind of superhero soundtrack with, of course, the music that would play when the villain enters the scene. All of these villainous strings and horns and orchestrations. It's very dark, it's very dramatic. And the song Rock Beast has this awesome organ sample leading the way. Not exactly novel or imaginative or adventurous or anything like that, but it gets a groove going, gets the blood pumping. Another moment on this LP that actually kind of reminds me of MF Doom is the song Savagely Attack, which grabs this drum break and guitar sample that many of you may already remember famously from the Madvillain instrumental cut Sick Fit, except it's played at a higher speed on this particular track. And another thing that kind of reminds me of MF Doom all over this LP is just the villainous character that Czarface tries to put together. I feel like Ghostface Killah and MF Doom have already done this, but they take these vocal snippets, they take these sounds, and they actually try to develop a character around them. Czarface, I don't really think does that. Instead, they sort of play out all of these vocal narrations without actually putting in the work to drum up this dark villainous character and build a storyline, build the concept. It's just sort of this loose blueprint of the concept that was hammered out by other people, and it's just sort of being Xeroxed on here. But to kind of continue on this track, Savagely Attack, Inspectah Deck does have lyrics on this song, like the one line where he drops this basic cable reference to Live from the ER, we're the talk of the town without the PR. I mean, some witty stuff, but once Ghostface Killah comes in later on this track, a lot like he says in the very lyrics of his verse, he is absolutely ruthless. Not only with his lyrics saying that he's like this dude who comes in violently like he's on bath salts, but he sounds way hungrier, even hungrier and more aggressive than Esoteric himself. And he's got personality in being aggressive and being cutthroat. He actually sounds hungrier than much of anybody else on this entire album. I think the only MC that potentially steps to him when it comes to attention-grabbing energy on this thing is the verse that Oh No dropped. And the song World War IV kind of has this old school, fast-paced exploitation film soundtrack funk sample to it with this flute kind of dancing on top of the beat that I like a lot. However, this track drives Inspectah Deck and Eso to spit at a much faster pace. He doesn't really come off as intelligible as Eso when he's just trying to flow at this speed. However, I feel like this LP picks up a little bit more with the song Poisonous Thoughts, which has one of the best beats I feel on this album and is a little bit more of Rizzo worship. Just a little guitar lead calling out in this cavernous way. INS and Esoteric not only sound great on this spacious beat, but there is a beat switch up later in the song that introduces Mr. Motherfucking X-Choir, who actually has a pretty eccentric and fun shit-talking verse that I liked a lot. However, not every MC on this LP kind of gets the red carpet rolled out for them like Mr. Motherfucking X-Choir did. Actually, the issue for me is that many other MCs on this LP sound mixed badly, kind of drowned out, sort of muddy with their vocals, or maybe not even that enthusiastic with their verse when they come through, especially Action Bronson as well as Capadonna. Overall, the production on this LP is pretty good. The lyrics are pretty good. The flows occasionally can be shaky, and there's really not enough variety or original inspiration on this entire thing to make it feel as fresh as some people are making it out to be, unfortunately. This album really does kind of bite off a little bit more than it can chew by throwing out all of these vocal snippets and all of these narrations, which at the end of the day just come off as a gimmick because they don't really develop it into anything other than just sort of a distraction or a bumper between tracks. Feeling a decent to strong 6 on this LP. If you've given it a listen, what did you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And yeah, that's about it. 7L, Esoteric, Inspectah Deck, Czarface, forever.